Kengan Ashura. It's a martial arts manga made by Sandrovich Jagbako and illustrated by Daromel. And if you have heard the name Sandrovich Jagbako somewhere else, it's probably because he is also the author of How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift. So, today I shall be talking about Kengan Ashura, the anime and the manga in basically a review. So, where do I begin? Kengan Ashura, the story starts when businessman named Kazuo Yamashita sees a match between a man named Tokita Oma and Komada Shigeru. There he witnesses the strength of Tokita Oma and how capable of a fighter he is. Later on during his life, he meets up with the boss of the Nogi group where he is an employee. There he is informed about the Kengan matches that have been going on for about 300 years. So now it is up to Kazuo Yamashita to become the manager of Tokita Oma. Before the Annihilation tournament begins, which is the best tournament arc in all of anime and manga, at least in my opinion, Tokita Oma must prove his worth by defeating 3 foes: Ichiro Nakata, aka Lihito, Sekibayashi Jun, and Kaburaki Koshi, also known as Medicine Man, who was skipped in the anime, which is quite sad. The Annihilation tournament in itself is very unpredictable, because for example, let's take Bucky's The Maxim tournament. We all knew Bucky was gonna win. Every time Bucky got his ass kicked and he still won. And that's dumb, like, my boy's nerves got fucking destroyed and like, yeah, it doesn't affect me. For example, but in Kengan, the damage the characters take actually play a part in the loss, for example. Kengan in itself is also very fantastic in its portrayals of different martial arts, because we have some fictional martial arts such as the Raiching style, Nico style, and Koei style. But we also have realistic martial arts, for example, Jijutsu, Lethwei, boxing, Aikido, Baritsu, Jeet Kune-do, and such. They themselves are, actual martial arts, and they are portrayed very well. And the choreography, at least in the fights, are also top-notch. That's good, right? The characters are actually pretty decent, for example. Oma, when he first, gets introduced in the manga, he's very full of himself and cocky because he thinks of himself as the strongest. But after around the first round in the tournament, he gets more humble because he indeed realizes he is not as strong yet, because let's just say he gets his ass kicked real hard by the Emperor of the Kengan matches. So he basically goes through an entire character arc and, humbles himself like, yeah, I kinda sucked back then. And that is good. And the best part about Kengan Ashura itself is the fact that even though the main character gets power-ups during the fights, like normal shonen anime, it doesn't feel as bullshit as in some other shows, because all the other characters also get better the more they go. For example, Tokita Oma in the first round, he basically forgot everything that Nico style had to offer. In the second round, he regained all memories of the Nico style and learned how to use it better, and he became stronger by that. And yeah, power-ups during the match, fine. But for example, other characters also gained some sort of power-ups. For example, Jiu-Jitsu master Imai Cosmo also learned Foresight, which is basically you kinda anticipate the opponent's next move and such, Of course, like I say, all the characters are actually pretty well developed in the show, or they get some sort of change at least during the one, because, for example, Sekibayashi Jun, when we first met him, he also kinda was full of himself and a total dick sometimes. But he actually became better character during the Annihilation tournament. First, Gaolang Wong Sabat, everybody's favorite boxer, was also kind of an asshat when we first met him, but after the first round he also kinda changed to appreciate things and such. And the best part of the things, or in Kengan, is the thing that the fighters don't hold grudges. For example, in Baki, they do kinda have grudges against each other. But in Kengan, like they said, it's water under the bridge after the fight, and most of them actually become friends with the guys who beat them, which is actually pretty funny. The anime is executed in CG, and it's not the worst CG. It's pretty competent. It looks good, and they make the fights look great. So what's to complain? Well, they skipped quite a lot of content. For example, a build-up to an upcoming thing. They skipped one character who will become important nearing the end, they skipped certain backstories that were great and such. And that kinda made the adaptation for me kinda lacking, because they skipped some of my favorite content from the manga. As for the manga, it looks a bit odd-ish in the first few volumes, but let's just say after volume 7, the art style becomes better, and also the show just gets infinitely better during, let's just say, the second round, because all the fights start being great. In the first round there are a few good fights and, some bad fights as well, but second round only has good fights, at least in my opinion, and they will keep coming the more it progresses. Let's just say it is unpredictable in a sense, because it doesn't really follow the shonen formula, basically, I guess. Because let's take an example. In the first round, there is a fight between Lihito and Kuroki Gensai, and we already know who Lihito is, and is a friend of Tokita Oma after their match. And let's just say Lihito ends up losing the fight, which is kinda unpredictable, because you kinda expect that the guy the main protagonist knows ends up fighting him in the finals, but that does not happen. And that gives it the sense of unpredictability, because usually it goes if there's a guy who the main character knows in the fighting tournament, they usually end up fighting each other, but that was not the case here. The unpredictability, the realism, and the art make, the Annihilation tournament my favorite tournament arc in all of manga and anime. I think the closest second might be the, what was it, Yu Yu Hakusho's Dark Tournament, because that, again, was fantastic and kinda unpredictable, but, it was definitely expected that Toguro and Yusuke go against each other, because, why not? That's the plot. But in Kengan you never know who actually went up against the main protagonist, and that's pretty good in itself. So I would say if you like martial arts in general, or if you like Bucky for example, then I would say this is a good show to watch. And you should do it. Because it's fun.